Welcome to today's video all about how to travel on a budget or a little more affordably. So some of you who know me or follow me on Instagram may know that I share behind the scenes of the travels that my husband and I do. We've been digital nomads on and off for the past 5 or so years. I've been getting some more DMs from people saying, no, this is actually something I want to do, or in 5 years, I hope that my business is in a place where I can travel and work from anywhere. And even for those of you who don't have any desire to work from somewhere else in the world, but you just want to be able to travel a little more, this video will answer a lot of those questions around how to do it more affordably, how to not feel like it has to be this trip that you save up for and wait for in retirement, but can actually get out there and get going now. All right, so here's a few tips that have really supported me in being able to see 35 plus countries now, all around the world on several different continents, and hopefully can support you as well. The first little tip is to travel off season. Now, I know what you're thinking. Of course, you want to see Europe and Italy in summertime, but the truth is, a lot of the best deals happen off season, and many of these countries are just as magical when you wouldn't normally think to go there. So, for example, one winter, my husband and I traveled Europe, and we stayed in Amsterdam and we stayed in Belgium. And while those you may think of as more kind of summer cities because they do get cold, the truth is they were so charming and magical during that time of year. I have these memories of Amsterdam being covered in snow and people riding their bicycles over these canals at the little bridges, and it felt like the scene out of Mary Poppins. It was so beautiful, and there was something really just comforting about bundling up and going to our coffee shops or our co-working spaces to work every day. Same with Belgium, where it was cold. We were in our jackets and scarves every day, but we also stumbled across these Christmas markets, and we had cider and all these Christmas foods, and it just felt so bundled and cozy taking part in that European tradition that we ended up going back years later just to make a trip out of the Christmas markets in Europe because it was so memorable to us. So one of my biggest tips would be, if you have a list of places you want to go, consider going off season. You're going to pay a lot of money to be in certain places in the summer or when it's warmer, but you're going to pay maybe half or a third of the price to go in wintertime or when it's traditionally a bit colder. But you're going to find the same charm and activities and things that you can just fall in love with there either way. And so I know for us, we were able to find the cheapest accommodations on Airbnb, and we were able to make our budget go so much further by visiting some places in winter. So I would suggest that as well. Like, take out your list of everywhere you want to go and consider which ones you'd be willing to go visit in the winter, because you'll make amazing memories regardless, and your budget will just happen to go a lot further as well. The second tip that I have is that remember that what you're really looking at for the most part is that major flight from continent to continent. And that can be intimidating because you're looking at a few $1,000 flight. But something that I don't know if everyone realizes is that when you get to a continent like Europe, let's say, flights between the countries are actually quite cheap. So I've gotten flight deals around $40 before. I just saw a reel of someone saying they got a flight from London to Italy for $9.99. So I don't know about that for me, but there's so many good deals between countries and regions that if you can make that bigger trip and extend it for as long as you possibly can, where maybe you make that big flight over to Europe, but then you're able to just spend $30 or $50 on smaller flights between all the countries over there. That's a way to see a lot of a continent or a region and cover a lot of ground without having to go back and forth between the US to Europe or the US to South America or whatever it may be. The third thing that I would recommend is thinking of places outside of Europe or North America, because those can be quite pricey depending on when you go, but there's so much of the world that's way more affordable, and that's still just as amazing to see. So, for example, we really fell in love with South America. Buenos Aires was a city that it looks like Paris almost. It's so beautiful in its architecture, but it has these purple jacaranda trees, like cherry blossom trees, but purple, lining the streets. And the food is incredible, and the people were so warm and hospitable. We learned to do the local Argentinian tango, and there was just so much culture and life there. And same with a lot in Southeast Asia. So you can get beautiful accommodations and food and experiences in places like Bali or Taiwan or the Philippines for much, much less than what you may be thinking of where you're used to if you're based in the US or Europe. And those are just a few ideas. There's so much of the world and there's so many countries in those areas. I just listed off a few, right? But there's dozens that you could explore to make your budget go further and still get those amazing life-changing travel experiences. My other little tip would just be to think through little ways that you could save money that will really add up. So that could be things like packing snacks and protein bars instead of always paying for a coffee and croissant and snack everywhere you go. That's going to save you a lot of money day to day and add up if you're traveling for weeks or months at a time. You can also do things like packing just to carry on. So that's what my husband and I do. 95% of the time, we live out of one little carry-on suitcase when we are on the road, but it saves us so much in terms of the fees that add up on an airport or an airplane if you are packing a full-size bag and rechecking it every single time. So things like that can really help, and even if they may not seem like much, they can make the bill at the end of your trip much smaller. Same for things like making coffee at your Airbnb versus always paying for a $3 or $4 latte out. It's just like little tricks that then allow you to spend your money on the things that you really do care about and desire. The last little quote that came to mind as I was thinking about what to share here is that the world is a safe place. So I heard a fellow YouTube vlogger comment that as he was traveling in another part of the world, and I just thought how true that is and reflected on that, where, there's headlines every day and there's certainly conflicts around the world that are heartbreaking, but for the most part, the people that you meet are going to be amazing, welcoming people who are so excited and grateful to share their culture with you that it's just take that almost affirmation with you of the world is a safe place. I remember traveling recently to a country that was a little bit closer to the conflict in Ukraine, and I was nervous about that. And then I got there, and as we were sitting in this cozy little room where this woman at her coffee shop that she had built herself and decorated, brought us warm cakes that she had made that morning and little coffees. And I was just reminded that people are people everywhere, and the majority are really, really good-hearted. And so for me, it was just a really nice confirmation of that mantra that I always carry with me of the world is a safe place and people are good people and they want to help you and support you just like you in your heart want to do the same for them. So just as a little note, as you're thinking about maybe some creative ways you can travel or places you can travel, to remember in your heart that the world is a safe place and it's a beautiful place to explore. Memories make your life so much richer, and as they say, travel is the one thing that you buy that makes you actually richer. And I really, really believe that to be true. So would love to hear what idea you're going to take with you or where you want to go next, or maybe even look up a place that you have never even thought of, but now you have an idea for where you could go that may be more affordable or when you could go off season. But let me know what really supports you as well.